They got accepted through the automation. They had hit the criteria within Airbnb. It had basically taken their initial deposit. It had signed up my cleaner and booked a cleaner. And then I landed and I found out all this information. And I was like, this is why I love automation.
Hi, this is Garrett Sutton, and you're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast.
Welcome to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. Are you trying to get out of debt, invest, or just not sure where to start? Then this is the place for you. We discuss different ways to get out of the rat race and build your wealth. Join us on this wild ride to financial freedom.
Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cavaggioni, and today's guest is Kyle Healy. So Kyle, super excited to talk to you today. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mike. I'm excited to be here. Should be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a good time when you get to hang out with me, all right? I'm just going to put that out there. Anyway, hey, Kyle, so I want to start this off the same way I start off every podcast episode. And both for myself and my listeners, we want to know more about you. So if you could share a little bit about yourself, share your story. Who is Kyle Healy?
Absolutely. Kyle Healy grew up outside of Chicago in a suburb. Basically, the quick and dirty is took a computer science degree at the University of Dayton. That's where I met my wife. Spent some time in the Army Reserves, still in the Army Reserves. I got married in 2017, and that's the start of my big real estate journey. So I started learning about financial independence. At that point, really, you'll see a lot of the key themes in my life are family driven. So at that point, I was like, I got to take care of my wife too, as well as myself. So how do I start looking at things that are not just my time for money? So at that point, fast forward a little bit. For the Army, I got deployed in 2019. Right before I left, my wife found out we were pregnant. I had a little girl while I was gone. She was 4 months old when I got back. But once I learned that I was going to be a dad, I took that next step past just purely financial independence and how do I start making more money to support in case something happens to me. So at that point, I started digging into real estate. And that's been my avenue for kind of increasing wealth. Is I started jumping into real estate when I got back in 2020 and started picking up properties at that point. So I did all of this kind of on the side while I worked a full-time software engineer position. And I've bounced around in my career as a software engineer, but I would describe myself as a father, husband, software engineer, and real estate investor. So it's the go-to about me.
Yeah, Kyle, that's awesome, man. That's a great description. I definitely understand the deployment life and not being there for certain events. Obviously, coming back and now having a 4-month-old daughter when you come back, that's definitely hard-hitting when you can't actually be there. When I had my first daughter, I deployed right before her first birthday. It was like 2 months before. She was like 10 months old. And literally a week after I left, like she wasn't even crawling, but a week after I left, she started crawling and then walking in the same week. And I'm like,
really?
What just happened? Like she went from just being able to like moving her body weight around and doing whatever to now she crawled for a day and then got up and walked. And being that my wife and I are both from New York, the first thing that she walked towards was a piece of pizza. And that's what motivated her to walk towards it. So I'm like, that's definitely my kid.
Yeah, you got to get there fastest. Pizza's important.
Exactly. That can definitely drive you to reconsider like a lot of things in life, right? Having a kid and missing certain things. So I'm curious, as you're on your journey now, you've changed your outlook onto, it's not just about the financial independence piece, but it's what can I do to ensure that everything functions and stays in place even after I'm gone if something the worst was to happen. So by shifting that mindset and having a child, I mean, that obviously that helps you go that route. What is it that you would say now is your why? And I have a pretty good feeling I know what the answer is to this, but if you could just describe it a little bit in depth, if you could.
Oh, absolutely. My why is actually something I preach to a lot of people about, and I think it's very important. So for me specifically, it is absolutely my wife and my kids and as much time as I can get with them. So it's not just about the financial side. And I know that was the driving piece that got me to where I am today, but it's right now, like I optimize for the time with my kids. Like I make sure that I count how many days I'm there a year for their wake ups, for their bedtimes, picking them up from school, daycare, that type of stuff, and being around them as much as possible. And to me, it's one thing about just being with them, but also like actually being present with them and focused with them. So I try my best, and everybody makes mistakes, me included, like having your phone when you're with them. I try to not do that. I try to put that on the side. But like my kids and my wife are like my whole life and my why. So it makes it easier to go look at how do I invest in real estate and how do I take this risk here that's calculated, because in the end, it's going to buy me more time back with my kids as they get older. So it's all about my wife and my kids. And that's the pivotal driving why factor for me. There's a couple exterior ones about how do I build up the community around me, teach some people about real estate, because there's so much real estate out there that I think other people can learn how to do this as well and help push their financial footprint forward as well, so they can focus more on their why as well. But yeah, my core drive is my wife and kids for sure.
Awesome. 100%, man. Now, it's funny because this whole thing came full circle for us. And I say circle funny too, because it was through Circle, right? So we're in a mastermind group together, and that's how we got connected and how you got on the podcast, which is pretty awesome. Now, that mastermind is structured around real estate, right? And it's for military members and everything. That's our focus. But what is it that was that driving factor that made you say, hey, real estate's the way I want to go, and not towards something else like crypto or index funds, ETFs, or anything like that? I know you are involved in some index funds too, right? But
correct.
What made you decide to make that focus on real estate? I'm curious because I did the same thing, and I want to know why you did.
Absolutely. Actually, those key points in my life, when I got married, I focused in the financial independence, retire early, the fire community side of how do I save as much as possible. And I basically dumped a ton of stuff into index funds. So I spent a couple of years really focused on how do I save as much as possible. And then I got to the point, especially with my daughter, of how do I not just cut back on everything? Because I don't want to cut forever. I'm happy where I am, but I don't want to keep cutting. And the only way to save more is to cut more or to increase what you have coming in. And that's where I basically went from the defense of how do I save more to the offense of how do I make more. And I started looking at what kind of opportunities can I get into that make me money. And yes, index funds, there's a little bit there, but you don't really have control of it. Where on the real estate side, you can inject equity through rehabs, improvements, things like that to help build that. Plus, it's a tangible asset. And to me, that's where I liked the real estate side of things. So while I was gone on my deployment, I actually looked and said, hey, how do I build wealth? Not just an immediate extra paycheck. I don't want to trade my time for money. I want to be able to build something that if something happens to me, there's an asset there for my family. And real estate was the avenue I chose. There's a couple of them that you can choose from. Buying businesses or creating businesses is another avenue, but real estate just called to me because there's a tangible asset, and I could understand what it was. Like, I spent some time reading some things, but at some point you just have to choose. And real estate was my avenue that I chose.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. I like how you talk about how you switch from being on the defensive to going on the offensive, right? Because sure, you can play defensively, right? And you can still play defensively with real estate as well, right? You can be conservative with how you invest in real estate, excuse me. But at the same time, like you said, you're very limited with what you can do with index funds or just investing in the stock market in general. It's very hard to go and just pull money whenever you want to. If you do, there's a lot of drawbacks
taxable
to that,
events,
taxable events, things like where in real estate, there's ways to pull money out tax-free, do a cash out refinance, do a HELOC, so many different ways to pull your money out and then go and reinvest that into something else, right? Another piece of real estate. Personally, I did it with my primary residence. I took out a HELOC and I got into 2 syndications with that. And I feel it just provides opportunities that can keep it. I guess it's kind of like the gift that can keep on giving, right?
Absolutely.
With real estate. And as long as your intent is to buy it and hold it for a little while, man, you're gonna come out on top pretty much all the time.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Awesome.
I did something similar with a HELOC as well. I basically, with my primary residence, I knew, so I was planning on, lived in Illinois, we're moving to Ohio. And I was like, oh, I know I'm going to get a better HELOC rate on my primary residence. So I pulled the HELOC right before we left and then turned that one into a rental and then moved. And now I have this HELOC that I can use.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. And now that just adds to your liquidity, right? So now you have liquid funds if you need it. If a great opportunity comes up and you're like, hey, oh man, where am I going to find this down payment? Oh yeah, I got that HELOC. I got this line of credit here. Boom, I've got the down payment. I can get into this opportunity. So that's one of the things I love about that, man. For me, it's been super cool because like I just transitioned out of the Navy, right? And during this period with my pension not starting on time and my pay getting messed up on the way out the door, the HELOC was a great safety net as well.
Oh, I believe
which turned out to be very awesome. So there are so many benefits just to real estate in general, depending on what you're doing it for, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know one of the things, so we have a couple different topics that we were going to discuss today, right? We discussed what your why was, right? But tell me how do you go about automating your investments, right? Because I know that's one of the things that you had on here too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
There's good ways to automate, like just put on autopilot. How do you do that, Kyle?
Yeah, I can talk about it in two different ways. So the first one was you can think about it on the index funds or just your money coming in. I'm a big proponent of the money that hits your bank account will ultimately get spent. So if you can automate that where it leaves your bank account faster to something that's an asset or an index fund or something like a real estate account, it will get used properly. Where if it's just in your bank account, at some point, you're going to either swipe a card, pull money, and you'll end up just spending that on something. To me, the first step in my automation system is always just remove the money from the checking account. And whether it's move it to a savings account because you're building to buy for a down payment on your next real estate fund, or move it to an index fund, or really my first steps are always like, how do I fill my retirement funds first? Because I get those tax advantages. But like setting up that automation is pretty simple to do either through your employer or through your banks that make it very easy to do that. Second piece of that, I actually like the automation on the real estate side as well. So I run a midterm rental and I spent a decent amount of time making sure I could run it remotely. So like I live in Ohio, but my midterm rental is in Illinois. So I have everything set up from like your actual automated locks, your automated messages. So when someone actually books like through Airbnb, they inquire about something, they get hit with an automated message immediately. Then that automation will also send me a message saying, hey, somebody responded. You should let them know if they have questions or whatever. And it breaks down. I have 10 separate automated steps when they show up at basically they book the place, they get a message 48 hours before, they get a message 24 hours before they get a message, checkout, they get a message. All that stuff's automated. They don't have to do any of it. The other side is like my cleaners. So I have another app that it's just synced with where basically, and I guess is the easiest way to describe it is I automate a lot of my short-term and midterm rentals from the electronic locks, the communication with them, and then like your Nest thermostat for temperature. Like a good quick story about how it all works out. And this one is, I basically got on a plane and I took a hour and a half flight. And when I landed, I had a new guest request a book. They got accepted through the automation. They had hit the criteria within Airbnb. It had basically taken their initial deposit. It had signed up my cleaner and booked a cleaner. And then I landed and I found out all this information. And I was like, this is why I love automation. And it doesn't do everything, but it takes my ability to run a short-term rental and it cuts the time required to like minutes needed to get a new guest in versus like hours and hours.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you ever get like antsy or anxious just thinking about, hey, I wonder if the automation went off correctly, or what if there was an error, or what if one thing, but it didn't schedule the cleaners? I feel like I would get crazy, like in my head, that there's no human touching it. I like to outsource to like VAs and stuff, right? So I would probably hire VAs to do that for me because I feel like I would just get too anxious, man. Do you ever get like that?
I did at first when I was still building the systems and figuring out what worked and making sure I trusted them enough. Now I would say not as much because the key aspect in this still requires a human. So the automation actually goes through and basically pulls the last 4 digits of the guest phone number. That's their lock. So it's easy for them to remember. And I have to go put that into the system. So like they can't get into my house until I manually go in and do that step. So ultimately, like the end of the day, my asset's still protected because I have to personally go in and do it, or a human has to. But the actual steps, the piece that finally got me over the hump was like, if I lose a booking because something didn't work exactly right, like it's frustrating, but I can figure that out pretty quick. And most of the time I could set up notifications on my phone or get an email. But I turned a lot of that off just because I spent a little time figuring out how it worked, and then I built the trust in it. And there's been once or twice where something doesn't exactly work, but my system involves pretty much like once a week, I'll go in and just check that everything's working. And that's a couple minutes still, and I don't have to do the rest of it.
Nice. So are you strictly doing short-term rentals and mid-term rentals?
So I have a portfolio of long-term rentals in Ohio that I
Okay.
use a property management for. And then I have one that started out as a short-term rental, and then Kyle got smarter and spent more time looking at the laws and realized that it needed to be changed really quickly to a midterm rental. So now it's run as a midterm rental.
Okay. Fair enough. Good thing you caught that before somebody else caught you.
Absolutely.
Because you can't just be like, I didn't know.
It doesn't really work.
Hold
like
up in court.
Correct.
No, that's good. I'm glad you looked that up and took care of that. With that, so you got the long-term rentals, right? You got the midterm, short-term, right? So you already described some of the software, but what do you actually use for your software and also like your CRM? Do you use a CRM to keep track of clients or contacts or anything like that? Real estate investors know they're leaving money on the table every time they pass a rundown property and do nothing about it. Deal Machine lets you and your team pin distressed properties, look up the property owner on the spot, and send a personalized postcard to the owner directly from the app, all within a few seconds. You can set up mail on repeat to make sure you won't forget to follow up, and while the app is sending a custom postcard, you can look up the owner's phone number and email instantly. Plus, if you want to find even more off-market deals, you can build a team of people to drive for you. You just get to track how many properties your deal finders add every day, making your deal finding a scalable and profitable process. Go to DealMachine.com and use the code AverageJoe, that's AVGJOE, for 15 marketing credits during your free trial. That's AverageJoe, AVGJOE. Attention, fellow real estate investors. I know you're tired of ineffective marketing strategies that leave your lead generation feeling like a bust. Well, I've got a great solution for you. I've teamed up with Ballpoint Marketing to bring you a fresh approach to growing your business. With their handwritten direct mail marketing, your business will stand out from the crowd. Their amazing writing machines will craft personalized messages for each of your potential clients, making a lasting impression and increasing the likelihood of them responding to your message. They even make pen smudge marks to add to the authenticity. And for those of you that are driving for dollars, one of their most popular offers are handwritten door hangers placed directly on the front door. These door hangers show a potential seller how serious you are. With Ballpoint Marketing, you can trust their marketing strategy will be both effective and unique, just like your real estate business. Use my coupon code AVGJOE for an exclusive discount. Don't miss out on this opportunity to grow your real estate business and generate leads. Click the link in my bio for more. Let's get back to today's episode.
Yeah, you hit a couple of good pieces that I'm building right now. So the actual software that I'm currently using, Hospitable, is the automated messaging software I use that integrates directly with Airbnb. And so far, I pretty much have solely focused on Airbnb because my house has been booked almost all the time anyway. So I haven't yet expanded past that. That I may be able to optimize more, but I'm cool with it right now. Price Labs is what I use for dynamic pricing. So that took me from basically saying, hey, I'm going to rent my house for $100 a night to now it changes the price for me based on holidays, weekends, all of that jazz. And it has made me significantly more money and was well worth the $20 right now that I pay a month for it because it's way better. The cleaning software, it's called Turno. It used to be Turnover B&B.
Heard of that one.
Just recently changed. That one works pretty well. They basically also integrates with Airbnb, and it gives you like a list of cleaners. So you put out a job and they bid on it. So not all your cleaners have to be at the same price. So you can pick which cleaner you like. And then if one of them isn't available, it'll automatically send it to your backup cleaners. So there's some pretty good automation there. Those are the main pieces I use for that. In regards to CRM, that's actually a challenge I'm going through right now. So I've been old school, just using a spreadsheet currently, but it's
That's fair.
tapping out my systems. But so currently I use a spreadsheet to track investors, deals, and then really like businesses I've been recently looking at acquiring as well. But the spreadsheet only does so much. So like you put it all in, but you have to remember to go look at it. So it doesn't tell you, hey, it's been 30 days since you talked to this investor. You should reach out to them again. But to be honest, the CRM world there's so many products out there that
There are. I personally, there's two different ones I use, Asana and HiveMind. HiveMind was actually created by another real estate investor out in California. It's pretty neat because it syncs up with like Deal Machine and all that other stuff too. So, But yeah, I'm a fan of both of those. Great for emails and automations that way as well. And Asana is what I use like for my VAs and stuff, like with work tasks and all of that. It's been fantastic. And I'm using the free version, and the free version is like just that good.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, man. Definitely get a good CRM. It could definitely be life-changing.
Yeah, I tried HubSpot.
Especially with how automated you are, man. Come on.
I know. The problem is I tried HubSpot in the past, but there were so many options that it was overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
And everything I've been told is like, when you get a CRM, you have to fully commit to it because it takes so long to get it set up how you want to. And I just couldn't get behind HubSpot. So
I told myself I'm going to try a couple different ones and see which one I like the best. It was the worst decision I could have possibly made. I was trying HubSpot. I was trying Monday. I was trying Asana. What was the other one? There was like two other ones too, man. But I was like, I'm going to try them all and figure. I was using Trello boards. I actually really liked the Trello boards. I was using those for a while. Actually, that's the one that stuck. And then I eventually switched to Asana full time because I was able to build like so many different sections for so many different, because I do quite a bunch of different things, right? So I have a whole thing set up for my podcast. I have another thing set up. I have a podcast editing service. So I have that set up. I have my real estate set up. I have my financial coaching set up. It's all in one spot for me. And then all my tasks, all the things that I know I need to do will just come right to me, no matter what part it's for. So all I have to do is go pull up my thing and see, okay, this is what I've got to do.
And even if it's for 6 or 7 different things,
everything's divvied out. So that's what I like about it, that I could do everything all in one spot. I'm sure other CRMs out there can do the same thing, but for me, that works the best because it's also my favorite price, which is free.
Yeah.
So, playing a little
I'll have to look into that
right?
one. To look into that one.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, actually, so you had mentioned Price Labs was $20 a month. How much is Hospitable and Turno?
Yeah, so Turno actually, so that one works on, I think it comes out of the cleaner side. So basically, when they bid a price, it's whatever it is, they add their couple dollar fee in there. So when you say, hey, this cleaner is going to come in for $160, you said it's a 4-bed, 2-bath, and you want them to do laundry and make the beds, that type of stuff. Whatever that price is, what you pay. So I know that they're getting a cut out of there somewhere, but it's just some difference between what I see the number as and what the cleaner sees it.
Right. So you're just technically, quote unquote, paying the cleaning company, gets their piece from whatever you're paying. Okay.
Yeah. And I've seen places that'll try to like, hey, how do we cut out that third-party cleaning company and go directly to that cleaner? The actual chat features, the integration, all that works out really well. And I like to be able to say, hey, I get an actual invoice for them, which makes it super easy at tax time. Yeah. So I'm okay with it. And then the other one was Hospitable. I think they were right around, I think that one's based on the number of properties you have. So for one property, I think it was like 25. And then as you go up in properties, the price per property comes down. But I don't remember offhand, but I think it was around $25 a month.
Okay.
But that does all your automated messages where if they hit you on Airbnb, it will automatically send something back. And as a host, your response time is pretty key. So it does a lot of that for you. And it's a price that I'm willing to pay to make sure I can keep that kind of top star level and stay as one of the preferred hosts.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's the reason why you do something like that, right? Because it's all about keeping yourself, holding yourself to the highest standard as well. And if you got to pay a little bit of extra money to make sure that you're not only holding yourself to the highest standard, you're able to provide these services, be able to respond quickly. Just that customer service aspect of it makes a very big difference to anybody who's looking at like your listing and they say, I was looking at a couple different other ones. Yours is a price $20 more a night, but man, you get back to me so fast. So yeah, I'm going to book with you. People really do think like that, right? They will pay a little more of a premium for better service. So
absolutely.
It's worth it for you to pay a little bit of a premium for better service from those softwares right? And CRM and everything. So awesome, man. Now, okay. So besides that, you also have some long-term investments. Are you actively right now still seeking out deals? And if so, what are you looking for?
Absolutely. There's two things I'm currently looking for in the different branches. One of them is a short-term rental. So I'm actively looking to pick up just one short-term rental this year. And that's more on the personal side, what Kyle's looking for. And that's after talking to my CPA, there's some tax benefits there of me having another short-term rental. On the long-term side, I'm actually in the process through another member in the war room that we're both part of, building a syndication together. So looking at pretty much taking the multifamily properties and putting that kind of on steroids, as I like to say. So I own like a 10-unit apartment complex, but our plan is to be able to take down 20, 40, 60 unit apartment complexes this year. So we're in the process of kind of building what that looks like and figuring out what market we want to be in. So really looking for anywhere between 20 and 60 unit apartment complexes that we're planning on picking up this year. And the end goal is really to try to take down close to right around the $50 million real estate market in the next 3 years.
Nice, man. That's awesome goals, Kyle. That's great. Actually, I'm actually looking to start being a GP this year as well. I've been an LP on a couple deals, and now I'm looking to GP. I was invited yesterday, or somebody had asked me if I'd be interested in co-GPing with them on something. And I thought about it. I was like, being a co-GP would be really good experience to put on my resume there before I go off on my own.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm pretty interested in that. So we're actually supposed to be meeting up this week and discussing it further. So I'm pretty excited about what 2023 has to offer.
Yeah.
Started off right, but now it's things are starting to pick up and it's starting to look a lot better. There's a light on the horizon.
Absolutely. Do you have like specific markets or asset classes you're looking at?
So they do. So they're bringing me in, but of course they're like most people, they're looking in the Sun Belt area. So they're looking at Texas. There was one spot they were looking at in Vegas as well.
Okay.
And I think another spot they mentioned was in South Carolina. So
okay. Interesting.
Where I'm currently at right now as an LP is in Virginia, Texas, and Oregon.
Okay.
But yeah,
That's cool.
man, good stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right, Kyle, this is awesome because I'm really enjoying this conversation because I feel like you and I, the same things for the same reason. It's not about being in one specific piece of real estate. It's about having diversity in your portfolio, right?
Yeah.
And you even mentioned something earlier about buying businesses as well, right? I just started a business out here in Hawaii doing inflatable nightclubs, right? Hopefully, I know you're taking a trip to Maui. I'm hoping to expand over to Maui in the future as well.
Awesome.
But that's one of the things that started off slow for me. And I think it's because the weather in Hawaii since the beginning of the year has been we've had a really big rainy season, which has been, a little abnormal. So it's slowing things down for me a bit. But I think as we get closer to school graduations and stuff, it's about to get bonkers.
I believe it.
I'm definitely looking forward to that. But
That's cool.
Yeah, man, I love your mindset. I love your attitude. And I think it's a testament to the quality of people that are also in that mastermind that we're in together in the war room.
Agreed.
So I'm really glad we got to connect, and I'm really glad I got to have you on my show. But I have to ask you some more questions, man. And I want to transition this now to something I call the final round.
Okay.
Where I'm going to ask you the same 4 questions I ask everybody that comes on this show. And it's more of a putting you on the spot type deal, but it'll help get us into the mind of Kyle Healy, which I think we're already there.
Sounds good to me.
Are you ready to go?
Yep.
Let's do it. Okay. So Kyle, the first question of the final round is, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made in real estate?
Yes, the biggest mistake I made was not adjusting the taxes from where they were to where they should be. So I did it not on a single family home, but on a 10-unit apartment complex. And I put in the numbers, the deal looked good. And then the next year's tax bill hit, and it was significantly higher because the building was bought in 1980 and then sold in 2020. And they didn't update the taxes the entire time. So my bill basically tripled, my tax bill. Make sure when you're running your numbers, you're doing it accurately, because just taking the previous information and dumping it into your new stuff, especially on taxes, will come back and bite you. So that was my biggest mistake I ever made.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. And the thing, I've asked this question to a lot of people, and I don't think too many people had mentioned adjusting things for their taxes. So that's a new one. So I appreciate that. All right, Kyle, the next question kind of ties into the last one, but what is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first got started?
So some I learned for sure. I would say it's taking action and basically being comfortable that you got to take some risks if you're going to invest in real estate or business, or really investing. Like you have to take some risks to be able to move forward. Saying that, also make sure you have the reserves to weather the storm. You don't want to financially ruin yourself because you took a risk too far, but basically take action, take risks, but make sure that you can financially cover yourself if something goes wrong.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So very good, actionable advice there.
Awesome.
So speaking of actionable advice, and that's great that you learned that, but do you have any other tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that is just getting started out in real estate today?
Absolutely. So for this one's actually, it's a little counterproductive to what I think you and I normally do when it comes down to how many different things we run. But to get started, I would very much say focus on one specific topic. So if you want to do flipping or wholesaling or buy and hold single family homes, whatever it is, just pick one topic and be really good at that before you start expanding into a couple different things. And I know my brain, I think, it works similar to yours, where we like doing 10 or 15 different things at once. And that's great. But if you're just getting started, I think focusing on one thing and taking that leap past there of just taking that action, I think is pretty my advice for somebody if they're getting started. Just pick one thing and go at it.
Awesome. I love that. And thanks for calling us out like that. What's wrong with us? Jeez.
So anyway, I don't think you see it as what's wrong with us. I actively know that if I was to focus on one thing, I could probably do it way better, but I like doing a lot of different things, and I'm okay because it makes me happy to have my hands in a couple different things that if I'm not going to be as successful as the Brandon Turners or the Alex Ramozis, I'm cool with that because my goal and what I'm optimizing for is different than theirs. And that's fine with me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. And that's a great mindset to have. Definitely appreciate that. All right, Kyle, the final question of the final round. And this one's a softball. It's easy. But do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related book or podcast or both?
Yeah, book-wise, I would say The Multifamily Millionaire, Volume 1 was what got me off the couch and got me moving. Podcast-wise, there's a couple good ones. The Average Joe's podcast is the go-to. Average Joe's Finance for sure. Find Your Freedom is another good one. And then anything that Bigger Pockets has really pushed me to take action and learn about different things. So those have been my go-to, but
awesome, man. Definitely appreciate that. Wrote that one down too. I have not read that book. I'm going to add that to my list, The Multifamily Millionaire. So definitely appreciate that. And the fact that it got you to get up and take some action, that's really awesome, man. So Kyle, that is it for the final round. You survived. Pat yourself on the back. Great job. Hey, this has been an absolute treat, especially when I could talk to somebody so like-minded as myself. So I definitely really genuinely appreciate you coming on. But I have one more question that I have to ask you, and it is the most important question, Kyle, because people that are listening to this conversation are like, man, I really like what Kyle's doing. I like how he automated a bunch of things. I want to learn more about Kyle and what he's doing. And hey, he's getting to multifamily. Maybe I want to invest with him as in the future. So where can people find more information about you? Do you have a website you could share with us, social media profiles, anything like that? Be happy to hear it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is Creating Generational Fire. And then that's my Instagram social media handle as well. Creating Generational Fire. It's been my go-to. It's a little spin-off of the FIRE movement. I know I'm never going to retire early, so I like to call that real estate. A little financial independence, real estate.
I love that, man. I have a shirt too. It's an Average Joe Finances shirt, but it has FIRE on it, right? It says financial independence, retire early. But I always, like when I talk to people about it, I'll cover the RE part, the retire early, and say, yeah, I don't really care about these last two letters. It's those first two that matter. I'm at the point where I've reached financial independence, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to stop. I enjoy what I do, and I want to keep moving on to bigger and better things, taking more risks and having more fun with it. Because I feel like I'm 38. It's not time to retire yet. It's great that I can. My wife and I were having a conversation the other day, and we were like, we could sell the house if we wanted to and just pack up and go anywhere we want. And just, I told her, I said, if we were going to consider that, then maybe let's get like an RV and go across the entire United States and all the parts that are cool. Like I've never been to the Grand Canyon. I've flown over it several times, never been there. I'd love to make a stop there. And I said, when we're done with that, we'll fly over to Europe, rent an RV there, and go all over Europe. And then we'll go down to the Mediterranean and either probably buy a sailboat and then sail around the rest of the world. I was like, how cool would that be? Now, for me, I've always wanted a sailboat, and
there you go.
That goes back and forth. But that's the best part about it is just that freedom piece that you get, and you get that from doing the things that you're doing, Kyle. So again, thank you so much. This was a real treat. I really appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on here. It's been fun.
Absolutely. And hey, so to my listeners, I want to say to you as well, thank you so much for joining me and our special guest, Kyle Healy, on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Go leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked about today's episode with Kyle. Aloha from Hawaii, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.
Thanks for listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast, your source for beating debt, saving money, and investing. Learn more at averagejoefinances.com.